do first, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Is talk about how you met Nani. And then
Why not when I was born? How I was born?
okay, let's start at the very beginning. Okay?
Should we start with Adam and Eve?
No, that's too far back. And then I'm going to get all I can from Papa, and then I'm going to switch to Nani.
Okay.
Yeah.
And see, you can fill in the holes that he misses,
Okay.
if he misses anything.
Ja.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, just a minute.
Die da bauen zusammen machen.
Okay, Papa.
Yeah.
Go
Sag
ahead.
deinen
Yeah.
Namen.
I was born in Ketsch, Germany, on February 11th, 1900. I went to school in Ketsch, at a public school, for 5.5 years.
Can we start over?
Ja.
Von vornherein?
Ja, it's too loud.
Yeah.
Can we start over?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was born
I am.
on February 11th, 1900, in Ketsch, Germany. I went to school 5.5 years at a public school in Ketsch, and then I went to the next town, Schwetzingen, where there was a higher school, the so-called Realschule. I went there for 6 more years and graduated with so-called Einjährigem, which means I was entitled to serve only 1 year in the army instead of usually 2 or 3 years. After graduation, I went to Mannheim and got a job at a bank as an apprentice. I was an apprentice for 2 years, then I was a regular employee. I stayed there for about 5 years, then I went to Berlin for further education in business. And there I stayed for 1 year, and then I went back to the same company, to the Süddeutsche Bank in Mannheim, and stayed another about another 2 years. Then deflation started in Germany, and there was a Great Depression. And I was lucky to get a very good job in the plywood industry at the Gebrüder Thalheimer. I stayed with Gebrüder Thalheimer for about 5 or 6 years, and then I opened my own plywood wholesale business with Thalheimer as the main supplier. And I stayed into business until we decided to leave Germany on account of the persecution of Jews.
Papa, what can you describe the conditions in the Depression years?
The condition in what?
The Depression years.
Oh, wait a minute.
Like what were things
Yeah.
selling for, and
Yeah.
how hard was it to get
Yeah,
food?
okay, yeah,
And that sort of, what caused the Depression, basically?
yeah. The Depression years followed the terrific inflation Germany had. The inflation destroyed practically every fortune the average people had. My father, for instance, had a very good so-called country store. We were well situated, but my father was an old-fashioned, honest merchant, and he refused to get up the prices when the inflation was so terrific that he never could get the same merchandise at the price he sold the old merchandise. And finally, he was out of money and out of merchandise. When the inflation was over, we had practically nothing left but the house. The merchandise was gone, and the money we had was worthless. Absolutely worthless. It was I believe 1 billion mark was exchanged then for one regular mark, for one so-called Rentenmark. Then, of course, the deflation started as a consequence of the inflation. And that was bad insofar as business suffered because of lack of capital. It was very difficult to get a job, but I was lucky. When I left the bank about that time, I got a good job at the plywood factory, Gebrüder Thalheimer. And there I was in the plywood business for about 5 years. And after 5 years, I decided to open my own business in plywood, with Gebrüder Thalheimer as my main supplier. We stayed there in business for about 5 years until we emigrated. While I was at the bank, I met my present wife. She was a bookkeeper, and I was a correspondent. And I liked her from the beginning because she was a very, very friendly and good-looking girl.
Beautiful.
And I figured out a way to get more acquainted to her. I knew she liked opera and classical music, so did I. And I wanted to invite her to go with me to the theater, to the opera. Of course, there was a chance that she said no. And I wanted to avoid it. So I told her, I know you like opera, and I am able to get tickets at half the price. Are you interested? She said, yes.
If I can pay, I said.
Then I got tickets, of course, one for her and one for me. And I gave it to her. And I don't know, she paid me half the price. And then she went to the theater and she was surprised. I was sitting beside her. And that was the beginning. And then we went to the theater more often, and to restaurants, and so it came that finally we got married.
After 5 years.
Well, I opened my business. It went fairly well in the beginning, and later it was quite well. But then Hitler came to power, and shortly after, the persecution of the Jews followed.
What year was this?
The persecution of the Jews.
When he came to power and
He
you started
came to power in 1933.
But when did you start feeling it yourself? When did you start feeling his presence?
Well, right away. He never made a secret about his attitude toward the Jews before he went to power. So everybody knew when he will be in power, Jews will have a hard time. But nobody ever dreamed that it will be as hard as it would turn out to be, namely concentration camps and death. Well, we realized pretty early that we have to do something. First, it was hardly impossible to sell anything. My customers got threats from the Nazi party. If they continue to buy from a Jew, they will bear the consequences. So everybody got afraid, and I lost a lot of customers, and I realized I cannot make a living. Then my brother got caught reading a foreign paper, which was forbidden, against the law. He was caught and he got in jail for, I believe, how long?
2.5 years.
2.5 years for reading the paper. Well, this was the final straw on the camel's back. We decided to emigrate, my parents and I and my family. Of course, we had no idea that what what the what followed for the Jews who remained. The concentration camps, treatments, unspeakable treatments, and finally death. We left Germany in January
The 13th.
1937. We had affidavit from my uncle who lived in Eudora, Arkansas. He managed a hotel and he took out the papers, immigration papers, and on January the 17th, I believe, we arrived in New York and went by train to Eudora. In Eudora, we stayed about 3 months until I got a job in Little Rock. I got a job from a company who was known to us already in Germany. Namely, my uncle's wife was the sister of Mrs. Francis Silbernagel in Pine Bluff. And my mother had correspondence with him. And as it happened, the company intended to open a wine bottling work. And Mrs. Silbernagel promised me, when the plant will be opened, I will have a job as manager of the department. I was extremely lucky. I went to work on May 1937. And I stayed with the company over 45 years. And shortly after, the company was sold because the owner, Lester Silbernagel, was too old and there were no members of the family who were ready to take it over. He sold the company about half a year after I left, but not because I left.
Probably.
Yeah. I stayed 45 years with a very good company. I knew that only because of the good heart of Francis Silbernagel and Dan Silbernagel, I got a job, and this even at a time when unemployment was still great in this country. I loved my job. During all the years, and finally when I was 82 years old, I decided to retire. And I enjoy my retirement, so I am very busy still around the house, in my garden, preparing things. So I'm really very busy. Sometimes I could use another day of the week. And I thank God for being in good health, even at my age. But unfortunately, I cannot say the same for my dear wife. She is 82 years old, and not everybody is as lucky as I am. But for the age of 82, she could do a little better than she does health-wise.
When y'all first came over here to America, you landed in New York, then went to
Yeah.
Little Rock area. How did you cope with everyday things, not knowing the language well and not knowing the customs?
Yeah. Well, when we came over here, I knew some English. I had 3 years English in school. Um, and then when I knew I emigrated to America, I took lessons in English. So I knew some, probably enough to get through. But we were fortunate to have my mother with me, who could speak perfectly English. And this, of course, helped us to go through. And in Eudora, uh, I read papers read and studied the language, and my uncle helped me some. And when we came to Little Rock, we took lessons. There was a government-supported um, plan to teach immigrants. And we got a very good teacher, Mrs. Palmer, where we learned a lot. And soon I was pretty able to communicate without difficulties.
So I guess it goes without saying that you're happy to be in America.
Yes, we sure are happy to be in America. A lot of things were new, and a lot of things were not understandable. But generally, we found that people are much more kinder than anywhere in Germany or in other country. People everywhere try to help us wherever they could. Strangers. We had experiences which just we couldn't understand. For instance, when my brother came to this country, he learned in Germany to make neckties, and he tried to make neckties here, but here they were quite different, and he had a hard time. So one of the merchants here told him, next time when my manufacturer comes, I make you acquainted with him, and he will help you.